sucks, you know. So all my friends, you know, I've been wearing hats and headbands. I'm losing my hair, and so all my friends would call me fucking Baldy or something, you know. Like, that's just what you do, you know. I mean, George was short, so we used to call him a midget, you know. I mean, so when we said that stuff on Sludge, it was just, hey, that's you know, we're just busting balls, you know.
Now, who's your favorite cover for Sludge out of these three bands? Guns N' Roses, Sebastian, or Pretty Boy Floyd?
Who's my favorite what?
To cover, to put news stories out about.
Well, you know, the thing is, there's three different artists there that all are at a different level. You know, Guns N' Roses, or Axl per se, he's at the top. You know, he's the Elvis of the 80s. You know, he's the Michael Jackson of the 80s. You know, I mean, you see these pictures of him, it looks like he robbed Liberace lately. I mean, he's got these weird fucking rings and this fucking weird hairdo, and, you know, his fucking face looks plastic, and, you know, he's got, you know, fur coats and pointy boots and weird fucking jangly shit around his neck that looks like it's kind of like a junkyard rapper would wear or something, you know. And he sold, you know, 80 million records. So, I mean, he's like, anything Axl is always interesting to people, you know. Now, Pretty Boy Floyd, on the other hand, they're a band, and Steve, to this day, is a very good friend of mine. I talk to Steve all the time, but oddly enough, we don't talk about our bands all the time. We talk about the Lakers and the NFL. He's a huge football fan, so am I. We talk about that kind of stuff, you know. And but Pretty Boy Floyd, you know, they were getting mocked and made fun of out of the box, you know, and even a band like Ugly Kid Joe, who, you know, a lot of people that know, that had done their research, knew that Ugly Kid Joe's name was not Ugly Kid Joe. Their name was SWAT. And they basically were opening for Pretty Boy Floyd, and they thought to themselves, hey, this will be funny. Tonight, let's call ourselves Ugly Kid Joe when we open up for Pretty Boy Floyd. And they did it as a spoof and a joke, but it ended up sticking, and it became their name, and Ugly Kid Joe sold 3 or 4 million records. So, you know, Pretty Boy Floyd has also, over the years, with all their lineup changes and tour drama or whatever they do amongst themselves, the guys have had obviously their fair share of turmoil, even at the low level, if we will call them D-list, you know, as opposed to Guns N' Roses being the A-list.
Right.
So there's also that interest, you know, that people look at it and they're like, Pretty Boy Floyd didn't, you know, sell but a couple 100,000 records, but their name, everybody knows it, you know?
This is true.
And, you know, Sebastian, he's in the middle, you know? I mean, the guy's a talented singer. He's had it all, you know, and he's been at the top of the heap. But he's also kind of an emotional guy that wears his heart on his sleeve so heavily. And he kind of, you know, he kind of makes, you know, for lack of a better description, he makes an ass of himself a lot, you know. And I think he's learned a lot, even in the last couple of years, from things that have happened to him. And, you know, he's been arrested for all kinds of dumb stuff, you know, getting angry at the bar when they wouldn't let him walk out with a glass of wine in his hand. So he freaked out and smashed it off the wall and then was arrested. And in New Jersey, by you guys, one time a few years ago, had some incident, and then he wouldn't abide by the bar's rules. So we got in an argument, and they called the cops, and the cops came, and then they found pot on him. And it's like, he just, like, steps on his own fucking dick over and over with that kind of stuff, you know, right?
Yeah, he didn't learn his lesson too well as he grew up. It seems like the last few years, you know, he's kind of matured a little finally. Well,
you know, and here's the thing. You know, if you went and looked at the Wikipedia, and I think we did this on Sludge once, he didn't get arrested once or twice. You know, he didn't get arrested 3 or 4 times. You know, the guy's been involved with something really stupid, like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. You know, and it's just like, and that at the same time, he's led somewhat of a privileged life that, you know, since he was 19 on tour with Bon Jovi, that he's had a lot of things kind of laid out for him. I mean, red carpet. I mean, of course, the guy's, you know, he's a great-looking guy. He had insane vocal ability, natural killer charisma, could go on stage in front of 10 people or 10,000 and just kill it. But at the same time, he was kind of a fucking snotty-nosed punk, and, you know, and kind of boasted and kind of wanted to throw it in everyone's face, including his own band, which at one point many, many years ago already, 15 years ago, got fed up and went, you know what, dude? You can look that cool, you can sing that good, and you can be that badass of a front man, but you know what? You're a fucking dick, and we don't even want you in the band anymore, so fuck off. And they've stood by that for 14 and a half years. So, you know, take it for what it's worth. You know, and the thing is, he's done Broadway, done it well, but also lost a couple of those with some turmoil-filled, like, you know, suddenly he's not there and got fired or something happened, and you know, but then all of a sudden, it seems like every other summer, Axl takes him out and gives him 60 shows in stadiums around the world. So, man, that's a good friend to have. You know, hey, dude, you know, grab a band, and if you want to play in front of my, you know, 50,000 fans in Portugal and Argentina and Brazil, I'll take you. You know, so he gets handed some good stuff there. But he's somebody that I think.
That's like every year. Axl always takes Sebastian. It's always them two. It's like, wow. Like, I don't get that one.
Well, and the thing is, you know, Sebastian, too, you know, I think something that, you know, he said over the years, and he said it multiple times. In recent years, he hasn't said it the same, but obviously it became very public when the Canadian music VJ interviewed him and then referenced Poison in the same sentence with Skid Row, and Bach lost his mind. And so, you know, how dare you put me in the same sentence with them? And, you know, he's done interviews where he talked about, you know, I Remember You or 18 in Life being on a Monster Ballad CD with Warrant and Winger, and how he was just disgusted that, you know, he was lumped in with hair bands. Like, he felt like he was better than all them, you know? And Guns N' Roses, you know, if there ever was a hair band that was probably maybe, you know, outside that box and more classic rock or street punk, whatever you want to call it, it would be Guns N' Roses. But the bottom line is, at one point, even early on in the first videos, you know, they all had hairspray, they had eyeshadow, they were totally, you know, a glam hair band of the era. But they definitely, I mean, they weren't doing I Want Action and Welcome to the Jungle are two totally different songs. There's no doubt about it, you know. So
all right, I got some more quick, serious questions for you, and then I told you 20 minutes. We're at 40 minutes, and I mean, we could probably talk all night long. Let me see. Here's a question for you. I don't know if anybody's ever asked you this one. Were you ever asked to, like, fill in and be, like, a Jenny Lane replacement or singer for Rat or one of them hair bands from back in the day?
Well, absolutely. As a matter of fact, when Rat had their thing with Piercy, and this was in 2000, I think, when Rat had their issue with Piercy, and from what I heard through the grapevine is that they were on the road. He didn't pay his hotel incidentals. At the end of a tour, there was all this money that was owed, allegedly, from Steven to the band, and he didn't want to pay it. And so the band and their management took it out of his final paycheck or something from that tour, and they basically, you know, they billed him and they took his money, like a few $1,000s. So then there was a big argument over it, and I guess they were supposed to play like Japan and Korea or Hawaii or something, and Steven and them had a big blowout, and they basically said, he said, fuck you, or they told him fuck off, or whatever. Well, if you remember, there was essentially a little bit of a cattle call for vocal auditions, and Mike Tramp, I guess, auditioned, Jizzy Pearl did, Robert Mason did. At one point, Robbie Crane had been a friend of mine for years. I told him I was interested. He played Warren and Blotzer a couple of tracks, one of them which was Tied to the Bells off the Religious Fix record. They heard it, and they're like, dude, that guy's got a really good voice. And then he's like, yeah, it's the guy from TUFF, you know. So they let me come down and sing, and I auditioned. And that was kind of interesting. You know, I did 3 or 4 songs. They had, like, some management people there. They videotaped it. And then in the end, Robert Mason was the guy that actually got the gig. You knew that, right?
No.
Yeah. Robert Mason was the guy. They picked him. And then they did a showcase for their label at the time. I believe it was Portrait with John Kolodner. I might be off on that, but I'm pretty sure it was John Kolodner in Portrait. And what happened is they did a showcase, and the label said, we don't want that guy. We don't like him, or whatever. So then Robert Mason, they pulled a card on him, and then they ended up going and taking Jizzy. as the second option. And then Jizzy became their singer for, I think, 7 years, you know?
I'll tell you what, I saw Rat with Piercy back in the day in the 80s a couple times, and I always loved his voice on record, but never thought he could cut it live. And then I saw them when they came to Philly once with Jizzy, and I thought Jizzy was incredible with them. I enjoyed them so much more live with Jizzy.
Well, you know, Jizzy is a great singer, but I've said this before as well. I think John Corabi's an amazing singer. You know, it's like if Corabi had to fill in for anybody, hearing him sing Aerosmith all night would kill, you know?
Right.
But John Corabi singing Too Fat, you know, Too Young to Fall in Love or Live Wire or Shout at the Devil, you know, it just doesn't work, you know? John Corabi singing Motley Crue doesn't work. Jizzy singing Wanted Man, even though Piercy is not the greatest live voice per se, you know, would you want to hear Piercy sing Blackout in the Red Room by Love Hate? You know?
No, not at all. Not at all.
And that was my argument to Tracy Guns when he put Delane in the band. I said, yeah, she's a great singer. I think you know, Ann Wilson is an awesome singer, but I don't want to hear her in Def Leppard.
Yeah.
You know? I think Pat Benatar is awesome, but I don't want to hear Pat Benatar singing in Guns N' Roses. You know? I mean, really though, think about it. You know, LA Guns, Sex Action, Rip and Tear, all those songs. That's made for a rock band. You know, that's made for guys. You know what people perceive the fan base when they hear LA Guns and they're going to see LA Guns. They expect some leather. They expect some low-strung guitars. They expect some dirty rock and roll. They want to drink some drinks, fucking have a good time. You know, watching LA Guns.